What's up, guys? Today, of course, I'm going to be breaking down the medic rifle in Battlefield 1 called the Selbstlader 1906 Factory. There's only one variant, I just mentioned it, it's the Factory, which allows for faster recoil reset. You'll only have iron sights in terms of sights to choose from for this weapon, and it's reloaded by a strip clip of 5 rounds, so you're going to have to be wary of single round reloads and strip clip pre and post animation times in those reloads. As usual for all my reviews, I'll discuss optimum strategies when using the weapon and break down the symptic numbers to give you a better understanding of the weapon. You'll need to be medic kit rank 10 to unlock it, and you'll need to spend 200 war bonds. So let's get to the stats. To start, the Selbstlader 1906 Factory has a 299 round per minute fire rate, an 800 meters per second bullet velocity, a 12 meters per second squared gravitational constant, meaning you will suffer substantial bullet drop over longer ranges, but if you're inside of about 100 meters, you won't notice the drop off much, if at all. The magazine size is 5 for this weapon, and in terms of reload speeds, it's a little bit different. It takes 2.8 seconds to reload from completely empty, but because of the strip clip reload style, you want to reload after a single round fired or two, or reload when completely empty to not only minimize reload times, but optimize damage output because of that small magazine size, and I'll discuss this more in a minute. You can add a bayonet, but it will negatively affect the recoil of the weapon, or how quickly you can raise the weapon from a fire-ready position after a sprint, so that's up to you. That's the trade-off. The damage chart states that it has a base damage of 40 up to 26.5 meters away. Then the damage drops down to 35 at 52 meters and stays that way from 52 meters on. For Battlefield 1, the damage multipliers are 1.7 times for headshots, 1 times for upper body shots, and 0.96 times for lower body, arms, and legs. So in general, that makes the weapon a 3-shot body shot kill weapon at all ranges, and a 2-shot kill weapon if one of those shots is a headshot inside of 26.5 meters. So it's a decent damage model. In terms of recoil, the 1906 has 0.9 degrees of vertical recoil and 0.1 degrees of horizontal recoil to both the left and the right. It has no preference either way, horizontally anyway. Of note, in comparison to the auto-loading 8 Marksman and the Selbstlader M1916, it has comparable vertical recoil, but substantially better horizontal recoil, so 0.1 for this weapon and 0.3 for both of the other two. Also of note, because of the factory variant, it has a much better recoil decrease rating of 6, which is to be expected, versus the other two weapons I mentioned with a rating of 4. This isn't really utilized as much though, however, because of that very small magazine size, which I'll get to again in a second. We'll now evaluate spread. The 1906 has 0.15 degrees of spread when aiming down sights and not moving, and 0.85 degrees of spread when aiming down sights and moving. As a point of comparison to the other two weapons I mentioned previously, the M1916 and the auto-loading 8 Marksman, the spread for this weapon is significantly more per shot when aiming down sights and moving. That's something of note here. When standing, hip firing, and not moving, you will encounter 2.5 degrees of spread. When standing, hip firing, and moving, you will encounter 3 degrees of spread. So essentially, in terms of spread, it's not surprising news. You'll want to be as stationary as possible when shooting and aiming down sights to minimize your spread as much as possible. This weapon has some of the higher amounts of overall spread, and that's moving and not moving compared to the other medic weapons in the game, and it takes a while to unlock. Take that as you will. So what ranges and situations does this weapon excel? This weapon will do a great deal of damage inside of about 27 meters away, so for max damage and a 2-shot kill, if one of those is a headshot, you'll want to be within 27 meters. It has a faster fire rate than the other Selbstlader version, so providing you're accurate, this weapon has a faster time to kill than the other weapon. It also has lower recoil, so that's another plus for it. Having said that, this weapon has some significant drawbacks. The first being, and going back to what I was saying earlier in terms of overall damage output, like previously I mentioned this, because of that small 5-round magazine, it will limit you to at max 2 kills per magazine, and that's assuming you get a 3 body shot kill weapon and say 1 headshot, 1 body shot weapon inside of 27 meters. So already it becomes situational based on magazine size. Secondly, it has some of the higher amounts of spread among all the medic rifles in the game, especially if you're moving. It can be very effective if you treat the weapon as you would the auto-loading type weapons of staying in that 25 meter-ish range, perhaps a little bit more, but it has more spread, so that's a bit of a problem. Hip firing with the small magazine size and extreme spread while moving is not at all recommended. I'm sure the more skilled players out there will say, yeah, it's no problem for me, and great, but since the review always caters toward the average player, the stats say not to do it. Monitor your range at all times with this weapon. So the big question, what's my rating and would I use this weapon often? So let me paint you a quick picture here. You finally got all the way to rank 10. You unlock this weapon, you have a new toy, you want to go out in the battlefield and destroy everyone. Is it worth it? Nah. The pros of this weapon are the good damage model. 40 for body shots inside of 26 meters is still quite good. It has a good fire rate and less recoil than the fan favorite Mondragon and M1916 Selbstlader, sorry. So that's the pros for it. The problems: the small magazine size really hurt this weapon overall, and the spread increase while moving really hurt the overall potential of the weapon. But here's the worst news, the worst part of it. There's already a better version of this high damage small magazine archetype of weapon in the auto-loading 8 Marksman. The Marksman has a much faster fire rate of 359. Scope sight is given to you as well instead of dealing with iron sights, so you can shoot at longer ranges. It has less spread and it reloads faster. It also deals more damage, 42 versus 40, at the longer ranges, and 34 versus 26 in terms of meters. The Mondragon and the M1916 may have a slower fire rate, but they have the same damage model and larger magazine sizes. So as it stands right now, you're actually better off with almost any other medic weapon, essentially. This weapon needs a buff for max effectiveness. Now, that'll be up for controversy. My suggestions would be it could be as simple as increasing the magazine size to perhaps 10, or perhaps raising the damage model if you're going to keep it at the 5 magazine size, similar to the 42 damage versus 40 that it currently has of other medic weapons. But as it stands, there's no real benefit to using it over any of the other medic weapons. A lot of people are going to love it because it's a higher up weapon, they have it unlocked, it's bragging rights, but the stats don't really paint a very good picture of it giving you an optimum loadout at all times. So, as it stands right now, I'd probably have to give it a 6.5 or 7 out of 10, but I'll revisit this weapon if it receives any changes. It's not a bad weapon. Good players are going to excel with whatever weapon they're given anyway, so I really don't consider that an overall justification. But having said that, for the amount of extra time it takes, an incredible amount of effort it takes to get to rank 10 to unlock this weapon, it's extremely underwhelming for what it should be. You'd expect something with this much time and effort would be top notch, and it's not. Full stop. If you enjoyed the review, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing. Have a good one, YouTube.